Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Maslow responding to Thich Nhat Hanh. First of all, I wanted to express my deep admiration for all the work that you do and for all that you stand for. Second of all, I wanted to go over different concepts that you have expressed, um, beginning with the beginner's mind, implying our deepest intentions and desires that drive every action and every behavior that we have. When we talk about inner transformation, um, we are trying to understand that this is something that will benefit not only individuals but the society as a whole. Further exploring the concept of a reconciliation is what gives birth, so to speak, to conflict resolution. You have mentioned when you were telling us your story that when you were exiled from Vietnam during the war, there were like several monks burning themselves out of compassion, basically trying to make a strong point that basically saying that they were wanting to be heard, that they had a message, and that basically they wanted to be heard. Um, when you also talk about bodhisattva and you further explore the concept of nonviolent communication, I really appreciate the connection that you establish when you talk about the deep, compassionate listening. Um, I strongly believe in creating a space for a person to suffer less. When you are listening to someone compassionately, you're helping that person heal. Um, you always need to keep in mind that the main and only goal is to help them empty their hearts. Um, the feedback or advice is not really necessary at that time, but this is a moment to connect with them and for deep healing to occur and also to ease their sorrow. Uh, then you had also mentioned when you were talking about fear, anger, and despair, these are different emotions that come from or they are born from wrong perceptions, uh, wrong perce- wrong perceptions about the self, and wrong perceptions about the other person, and this is where the foundation of conflict comes from, the foundation of war and violence. Um, you propose it's not a model per se, but you explain a concept of uh, ending wars or conflicts or miscommunication by communicating properly with others, and it basically first started with what you explain as a deep listening, attempting to understand the other, not only to be understood, but also to be able to understand the other person or the other party. During this deep listening, there is so much that we can learn about our own perception. So not only we can be there present for the other person or for the other party, but we're also working on our presence, basically on our own perception. This is something that can be used not only on conflicts from person to person or father to son, but also when there are like multicultural conflicts or war between two different countries. Um, Something else that you had mentioned while talking about emotions is basically you establish a very nice comparison between anger and the energy of anger and the energy of compassion. You had mentioned how anger it is the energy that people use in order to act, and when they're acting from an angry space, they're not being lucid, they're not being present. When we talk about compassion, compassion is definitely better, but it also has a very strong energy. There is also different lessons to be learned from our suffering, and this depends on how we react to different situations. We need to make sure that we do things that provide immediate relief instead of acting in ways that will always continue to prolong our suffering. That's why I'm extremely grateful for when you start explaining the concept of mindfulness, which basically means to bring, helping to bring insight into everything we do. We also need to understand that happiness and suffering are interrelated. There is good and bad within each one of us at all times. That's why when you explain the concept of meditation, you really focus on being in the here and the now. That's why you mentioned during mindful meditation, it's all about breathing. We are supposed to be breathing and be here and be now in every situation that we encounter. You mentioned that life begins with a breath, and whenever we encounter a difficult situation, we should always start by breathing. When I worked in my own theory of self-actualization, many times when I was referring mostly to peak experiences, I was always trying to capture what it means or what one can explore or experience once you have reached a certain level within mindfulness meditation. In my concept of peak experience, I am exploring and what is described as an intensification of any experience to such a degree that there is a loss, there is a transcendence of the self. Many times when I have mentioned this, people thought that I was relating it directly to religious or mystical work or religious or mystical events. But these are experiences that one can have while one is performing secular events like viewing artwork or reaching sexual climax. Also, when we're experiencing at the highest level of physical activity. So, like you have mentioned in many instances, when we are riding our bike, we are riding our bike. And a simple experience with that, when we are in utmost presence and utmost presence in that moment, it is when we may be able to reach these big experiences, when we lose ourselves into whatever we are doing. So there is definitely this expansion of the self, but there is also a sense of unity and meaningfulness in life that come across when we do experience these peak moments. We all have the power or the potential to peak, to have peak experiences. And I think that there is quite a beautiful comparison between the mindfulness that we could be experiencing and exploring at every single moment of our day, and also the experiences of these peak experiences, as I called. So I'm very appreciative of your work and the support you have done to always resolve all sort of conflicts non-violently, because I think it's definitely leading to a more peaceful, more understanding, and more supportive and congruent world. I've always had tremendous compassion and admiration for monks like you that have dedicated their lives to be the best that you can be, to help humankind be better every day and be supported and learn from every single experience. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I certainly did enjoy yours very, very much. And have a great day. Thank you so much.